to like, yeah. So like, it's like, you can't throw in snakes or anything into like a Catholic church. Like this is not going to happen, but if like some denomination wants to be like, listen, we're doing snakes. Like we took a
Yeah.
vote and everybody wants them. Uh, mostly God wants them.
Mostly, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah, we get a big vote. He voted too.
he gets 3 votes. We all get one. So,
Yeah. But also Doug was a strong advocate. Doug really wanted the snakes in here, but God does too.
I normally do these intros trying to set up the conversation, give you an idea of what we're going to talk about, kind of act as almost a roadmap for the conversation. But today I'm talking to Chris Crofton. And if you know anything about Chris Crofton, whether it be from his podcast, Cold Brew Got Me Like, or his numerous appearances on the Daily Zeitgeist, you know what he's like on a podcast, and you know it is a free-flowing conversation. It covers every topic imaginable, and it is an absolute blast. So I am not going to hold this up. We are going to jump right in. Right up top, I do want to call out a couple of things. I'm going to link out to Chris's podcast. Again, it's called Cold Brew Got Me Like. I am going to link out to his album, Hello, It's Me, which is fantastic. You can get it on vinyl. It sounds great. I'm also going to link out to his book, The Advice King Anthology. So here we go. My conversation with Chris Crofton. I'm Zach Van Ness, and this is Grinding to a Halt.
Podcasts are a great way to get an audience.
Yeah.
And without having to deal with, it's a direct to the audience thing. You don't have to deal with a gatekeeper, really. I mean, you do, but there's a lot more room for you to be. Well, that's an overstatement. It depends on the podcast, but at least with the Daily Zeitgeist, there's a lot of room for your personality to, I don't know, propel you. Like they give you a chance. Like they give you a chance to be funny. Their format gives you a chance to be funny, and they, they're pretty generous guys. So obviously that's not every podcast, but podcasts are a great way around like having to go and do stand up in the current environment of stand up. It's not ideal.
Yeah. Are you doing much, if any, stand up currently?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just started doing it kind of again because my good friend, Greg Turkington, who is Neil Hamburger, is his character. But now Greg is also more known even as himself because it's not really himself, but as that character on cinema.
The heightened version of himself.
Yeah. And I've known Greg since I opened for him in 2006 when I was still drunk and had a band here in Nashville called the Alcohol Stunt Band. And I was just started doing stand-up because I was too drunk to really tour. I just really couldn't get out of town. And also my friends were kind of like buying houses and things in the band.
Yeah.
So I just was kind of like, I can't tour, but I want to do more shows in town. So I went back to doing stand-up because I'd done stand-up first in the early 90s in New York. That was the first thing I did because I didn't know how to play guitar. So I like just happened to be the stand-up scene here was like 4 people at that time. And I was like the craziest one. So they're like, you should open for Neil Hamburger when he comes to town. So I opened and then Greg saw my act and was like, I love your act. And we've been friends ever since. We've been friends for now, 18 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he usually always has this opener, my friend and his friend, major entertainer Mike, like they always like tour together. And Mike had to take some work and so some other work. And then so I got a chance to open for him a couple times, like just recently for the first time, like on the road. I've opened for him before, but only just like one night kind of thing.
Yeah.
And anyway, hanging out with Greg, I get to do stand up in a way that's like, what I love about stand up is like Greg has such a smart audience that they don't they're there for the opposite of, I mean, they're there for the art of it. I mean, what Greg does is, I don't know if you've ever seen it, like Veal Hamburger.
Yeah.
It's it's not something that you can just walk into if you're not a person who understands it's very funny to watch people who don't know what's going on watch it.
Yeah.
Because they get very sad and confused because they don't know why everybody else is laughing, and then they just leave. And it's very sad to watch. Actually, that makes me sad when I see people who are like, I don't understand what's happening. And then there's nothing worse than like not laughing when everyone else is laughing around you.
Yeah.
You must feel so angry. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
like something's wrong with you.
Oh yeah, I watched that on tour with him, like very much. Like there's just always someone in there who someone brought to the show, and they just don't get it at all. And they also start getting kind of angry, you know what I mean? Because everybody's laughing and they're not. So they're like, this is fucking stupid. I mean, that's the reaction you have.
Yeah.
If everyone else is laughing and you're not, the only thing you can say is, this is fucking stupid, even though it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, so Greg, I got to do stand up for a week with him in the fall and a week with him like 2 months ago. And I just was doing 25 minutes for like 300 people some nights. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I forgot. I love doing this. I just don't, it's just not something I had been doing because of the pandemic and stuff like that. So but I'm back like doing stand up again. And I am pretty good at it. Like, I mean, I did it for a long, long time, and I'm actually, I think I'm kind of really good at it. It's just not the kind of stand up that sells chicken fingers necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not that grinding, like I've rehearsed it to death and I'm just going to nail you to the wall with fucking laugh lines until you're exhausted, which I enjoy. I like some of that a lot, but that's not what I do. I do more of a kind of what you hear on a podcast, like a little bit like if I get sidetracked, I'll just go there.
Yeah. Yeah, just let it flow naturally. Just let it be
sometimes
what it is.
Sometimes that doesn't always work out. Like I'll end up in a dead end or something, but that's like sort of unacceptable. Like dead ends are unacceptable in that modern like comedy club form of comedy. You're not allowed to have a dead end. And I'm not a huge Mark Maron fan, but I prefer that model where it's like kind of like you're having a conversation and you have a loose idea of what you're going to talk about. I definitely have a list of like some jokes now. Like I used to go on stage and wing it every time because I was like, that's true art. Like just whatever. It's like also, true art requires you not writing anything down. What a coincidence.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Weird.
Like,
I get to drink all day and I don't have to plan.
Exactly right. And I did that for like forever. And you could get me to talk about, I'd tell you my philosophy of why that was. And it was so, I'm sure to everybody I was talking to, they're like, he just doesn't want to write anything down.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh no, it's because, and then anyway, I finally gave up and I wrote some stuff down, and it's a lot better if you have a few things written down.
Yeah, like it doesn't need to be structured. You don't need to hit every syllable properly, but at least like a roadmap. You need to know where you're starting and where you're ending.
I mean, it's
how you get there. It should change each night depending on how the audience is feeling, the reaction you're getting.
That's what I like.
It's similar to like live music, right? If the audience is giving you something and it's working, you lean into what's working and you pull back on what's not working. Like the ebb and the flow, the relationship between the person on stage and the audience isn't a live thing. And if you can hone into that and you can focus on it, everybody has a better time because then you're getting a fully unique experience. Like, the next show is not going to be the same exact thing that you just got, and it makes it special.
Zach, you just hit on something really interesting, and that's sort of like connected to evangelical, improvised, local religion versus Catholicism, which is a mainstream, established, this is how we do it. Same thing with like, and I just thought of this because of what you said, music, right? When you go to a music show, you do not get nailed to the wall and walk out of there exhausted. When you go to even like a great stand-up, when you're going to see these people that have worked out every beat and every word, it's designed to make you laugh hysterically, endlessly, and then walk out of there like a limp rag and kind of like, and I don't enjoy that in a way. I don't necessarily enjoy that model. And it's very, I prefer to do stand up in a way that's more like a music show when it's like, you can like take left turns and right turns, or you can do whatever you want according to but that's not modern stand up is this military exercise. And it's really just because it's serves commercial interests that it be short, concise, easy to, we know what you're going to say ahead of time, all that kind of stuff, and that's why I've never been good at that. Like I've never been I don't think anyone's ever looked at me and said, "Oh, you should come on TV and do your set," because they'd be like, "How long do you need?" And I'd be like, "Probably like 45 minutes, you know."
How many jokes do you need? One? Yeah, about 25,
can you tell
30
us
minutes.
the jokes you're going to do ahead of time? No, I won't.
No, I don't write.
No, I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are. Something about gluten-free.
But it goes back to this model of everything has to be short and concise so you can turn it into an Instagram reel or so it can go viral on TikTok. And I mean, I'm wearing a Twin Peaks shirt right now. I like things that are
Twin Peaks
challenging.
rules.
I want things that break some sort of
That's
format, that know the rules, because if you know the rules and you understand how it works, then you can deconstruct it and you can make it something new and something challenging. Same reason people love jazz. Like, even as much of an asshole as some people might be, like if they put on a jazz record and they can explain to you like, no, this is important because of what they're doing here, and this is how they're deconstructing the rules of music. Like, it's such a high art form and it's so special. But there's a reason that those people aren't famous, because no one wants to hear that in the mainstream. There won't be.
That's the reason why they all died of drug overdoses and didn't make any money. You know, I mean, that's exactly. You know, you don't make any money. That's the problem. I mean, I don't make any money. You know, and I've done a lot of things I'm very proud of that have made very small amounts of money, but certainly nowhere near enough money to support myself.
Yeah.
And I see, for those of you listening, right behind Zach, I noticed a little while ago, there's my record album, Hello, It's Me, which came out in 2018. And there's a new one coming out in like a few months. I'm finally putting it out. I just can't take it anymore. Because I was waiting to do vinyl, and I'm just not going to wait to do vinyl. I'm going to do a digital release, and then we're going to do vinyl afterward. But also my Advice King anthology book is there.
Look, I'm a fan. I'm a fan, Chris.
Well, I'm so proud. Thank you. I'm so proud of those things, because both of those things were done after I got sober. And I did realize, like, once I let go of like being competitive as much, like when I was drunk, it was very, very like looking at other people and being like, why don't I have this? And why don't I have that? And that a lot of that drops away. I mean, it helps. For me, it helps to go to AA and hear the actual philosophy of, like, why drinking sort of about control and trying to control outcomes, like your mood. If you control your mood with drinking, then that leads to like, I can control everything.
Yeah.
Because you can control your mood with drinking to some extent. So it feels like, that means I'm God. So now I can just control my career. And if I'm mad enough at this artist, that'll somehow make them go away. And then just there's a lot of magical thinking involved in drinking, which does not help an art career. Because part of an art career is that it's completely, for the most part, there is no framework, and that can be hard. Let's put it that way. And there's not a lot of money, but yeah, the best stuff, like jazz, like it comes from sort of rejecting the mainstream, which is a risky thing to do and can lead to poverty and all these sorts of things, you know, I mean, poverty mainly, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and so I admire a lot of people who do that kind of stand up. I mean, sure, there's a lot. I mean, it doesn't mean they're not funny or anything. It's just, I can't really do it. I can't enjoy it. It doesn't, applying a military sort of mentality to being funny, it just doesn't work for me. I mean, it doesn't feel good to me. But I also know that, like delivering a good joke, even if you've written it, I did after I started writing a few things down. It is fun to every now and then have a laugh line that you know is going to work. And that is very fun.
Yeah. That you can have it in your back pocket to pull the set back from the brink if things are just going
off and rails. You don't even have to deliver it
drop this.
And it's something you've said a million times, so you don't have to even really be that attached to it, and it still gets a laugh, which is an interesting, weird thing, but it's also kind of great. I mean, I have a stupid joke, like, people are always saying pot has no side effects, but, you know, everyone who says that to me has mustard all over their pants. And that's like, you know, like a guaranteed laugh line, you know, it just is. So I'm dying on stage, I can always say that, you know, and then usually I follow that with like 20 minutes of rambling about how people who smoke weed are out of their minds. But, you know, I've smoked weed, like, I don't know, 650,000 times. I just don't do it anymore, but, I'm a total hypocrite.
But aren't all artists kind of hypocrites a little bit? Like it just kind of goes.
Well, it's a journey.
Territory.
Yeah, it's a journey. You think one thing and then you think another thing. And as you get older, if you get lucky enough to live through those your 20s and 30s and stuff, which can be very difficult, I do feel very lucky to be alive, because I definitely had an odd upbringing and it made me very angry, and I really just the easiest way to rebel I could think of was just to drink and smoke, and then that led to drugs, and I got real lost, and definitely put myself in positions where I could have died, and local, if you can hang in there, it's sort of sad. That's why I think it's so sad for people who die young, like people like Kurt Cobain and stuff, like because at the time, like, you're like, oh, well, that's 27 is not, that's pretty old or whatever, and then you get old. I'm 55 years old now. And it's like, oh my God, I feel so bad for Kurt Cobain because he missed out on the best part of life, which is when you finally like don't want to kill yourself because you're just so overwhelmed by, there's a certain amount of excitement to being young that's so overwhelming that it makes you kind of like want to just check out because it's too much, especially if you're like if you're a sensitive type and a curious type. There's a lot to look at, and it can be overwhelming, and it can make you want to erase yourself in a way.
Yeah, it can be a lot to take in. It can be a lot to process, and especially for a person, using Kurt Cobain as the example,
sure,
who kind of has everything at his feet at that point, deciding what's next can also be so overwhelming.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I mean, being 27 and having that much.
Yeah, to be on top of the world at that age, because your brain just got done cooking. Like at 25, your brain is fully formed. So like he had more fame than anyone could ever possibly deal with before his brain was done forming. Like I don't know how you deal with that type of stuff.
Right. And you find out like when you get older that fame attracts, like what you attract in that situation is you're surrounded by the worst people in the world who are trying to profit off of you. So you're very lonely also, because you're just like, who are these people? Like all of a sudden I have millions and millions of friends, but they're all like, these aren't people I used to know or value. Like, who are these people? And they're just people who are, it's funny. It's mostly rich kids. Like rock stars get surrounded by rich kids because they're the only ones that have days off, just like rock stars. I mean, that's true. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the groups the kind of groups that hang around, like the Rolling Stones in the 70s, like, oh, every tour stop was the same entourage. That entourage is all rich kids, or else they'd have to be at work.
Yeah.
And those kind of people are just like there because they want to get more. Like rich people are kind of also like oversaturated with attention and stuff, and they want more. So like, what'd be better than being rich? Well, being rich and standing next to Mick Jagger, But then Mick Jagger's stuck with talking to whoever that guy is. You know what I mean? And he's like, he's renamed himself a Maharishi or whatever, but he's really like, he's really like the Duke of Edinburgh or whatever. It's just so wearing like a muumuu. It's so fucking annoying.
Yeah. Well, and having worked with a lot of those people who were rich and then their dad gives them a company, so now they're the boss. Like those are the people who then go into politics because they're like, oh, obviously I know how to lead. Like I am
the worst.
And it's just, it creates this system of the worst possible people taking up all the space, all the resources, and then just all the air. And it's a nightmare.
So you learn like as you get older, like as much as I still want to get famous in some sort of like weird, just adolescent way, I do know enough to know that it's not pleasant. And it's not, luckily I've been able to do art on a somewhat professional level. So I know people who are much more successful than I am, quote unquote. And, I find that it seems like a lonelier and lonelier place in a way. And I, growing up watching VH1 Behind the Music, that's hard to get through your head. Even as a 55-year-old, I'm still like, but no, you want to get famous, even while I'm saying this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is true that, people who are happy don't die when they're 27 years old. I mean, people like Kurt Cobain and Jimi Hendrix and all these people, they ended up, those are bad situations. If you're dying when you're 27, that is not normal. And that is because you're not happy. And it's hard to get through our heads because we've been sold. Capitalism is selling a competition, and we've all been grown up with the idea that there's some way we can win and then be happy. And it's not true. It's really not. But that's so hard to know when you're a kid, and when you're 25 or 27-year-old, so I'm glad to be like I hate being 55, but I also am like so glad that I'm 55 because I just
Yeah.
I can't believe it really. I am able to, calm myself down when something doesn't go well, or,
Mhm.
I don't constantly resent other people's success. I mean, the resentment kind of goes away a little bit. It's amazing how much drinking on a regular basis makes you just sort of angry because you're always like, everything's kind of going wrong. And so you just get kind of mad all the time. Like everything's going
Mhm.
wrong in the sense that like you woke up late, you don't know where your keys are, you're
Yeah.
like, you don't realize that you're always on some level irritated
Mhm.
and feeling like a fool. And you're thinking that you want to be saved from something, which it turns out is alcohol, but you don't know
Yeah.
that. And you're like, I just need to get fucking famous so someone can find my keys for me instead of me. And you're like, wow, that's crazy.
Plus, a situation like that, you're probably treating depression with a depressant,
Oh no.
which then
People,
compounds the issue to such an extreme.
well, when I started drinking when I was 13, 14 years old, so I didn't know any better. I thought,
Mhm.
how am I going to take the chance that this is supposed to be making me depressed when I don't know any other way? So I'm
Yeah.
afraid to make that leap. Like, what if it makes me more depressed? I don't have it because I still get this joy from like 4 beers. Like, where would that go? Then I wouldn't even have that. But it turns out if
Yeah.
you get sober for like a year, then you start to understand your system changes, and then your system has a natural sort of highs, and you get, but if you start drinking when you're 13, you don't really know which end is up. So you just figure, well, I'm not going to quit doing this thing because it makes me happy once a day for an hour. And that's
Yeah.
maybe what if I quit and then I don't even have that hour.
Yeah.
So that's also stuff you learn when you get older. It's just like, no, eventually if you can get sober, you find out, oh no, I was making myself very sick.
Mhm.
And that's why I was only happy for an hour a day. But if you had a weird childhood too, you're like, well, that hour a day. I mean, also, when you're very young, you can kind of shake it off. So you can be 16, 17 and drinking, or 14, 15, and it doesn't seem like it has any bad side effects. So you're just like, I get
Yeah.
happy at night, I get a little sick in the morning, and then I feel fine. But then
Yeah.
that stops. Your body just stops being able to do that. And it starts hanging around. And then you like drink one day and you feel like shit for 4 days and that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's in your system in a way that it isn't when you're 16.
Mhm.
And then you chase that for the rest of your life. You're like, oh, I want to drink like I did when I was 16, and have those nights like that. And then every now and then, like once in a while for like 3 hours, you'll feel like really good. And you'll be like, I'm back. I can drink again. Like, it's like, I'm good at it again. So you grew up, did you drink where you grew up? I mean, or did sort of like heavy Christianity kind of save you from that in a way?
No, so I grew up.
Well, that's insane. Heavy Christianity doesn't save anybody from anything. Just heavy Christianity. Do you attribute your success to heavy Christianity, Zach?
Do you have heavy bouts of
Do you
Christianity?
recommend heavy Christianity?
No, so I grew up in Georgia, very conservative Southern Baptist. Um, but Southern Baptists have this thing where they will like downplay any sort of alcohol use in public, but then obviously, you have a beer when you're watching the football game. Like
Mhm.
pretty standard religion. I was so wholly bought in to Christianity from
Mhm.
like the time I was little until my son was born. Like I
Sure.
was I was all in, believed all of
Mhm.
it. So I'm 35. I've still never had a drink because I just didn't start.
Sure.
And then it became like a bit, like it was funny not to drink.
Yeah.
So like people would offer me money. They'd be like, I will give you $500 if you drink this beer. And I'm like, it's so much funnier if I don't drink the beer though. Like,
Oh yeah.
and now
Uh,
at this point, I'm like, there's literally no reason to start. Like, why start at 35? So I've never had a drop of alcohol, never had a cigarette, never smoked weed, lived a completely sober life. Uh,
wow.
More as a
That's
bit.
amazing.
And
No,
it's
that's
not
a.
because I didn't do anything. It
Did you drink
required nothing
coffee?
of me.
Do you drink
Uh,
coffee?
I've had coffee once. I'm not a coffee fan.
Do you drink yerba mate or something? Do you use any kind of? Are you just
Yeah,
drinking
here.
water
This
right
is
now, or?
I'm drinking a peach monster.
Oh, okay. Well, there you
So
go. Okay,
I,
so
I
you
have
do drugs.
caffeine.
You do drugs. All
Yeah.
right, fine. Fucking Monster Energy drink. That's worse than heroin.
Look, this is
Uh,
FDA approved, all
yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah, the federal, the federal. I can't even think of. I'm trying to think of some corruption fake acronym. I can't think of it. Um. Uh. So that's interesting. Yeah, because I don't really think that. I think smoking pot. I could
I think it's
argue
probably
that.
good, and I probably should do it.
I could
Is
argue
what I
smoking
think.
pot. I could argue smoking pot once, like, but I'm also talking about pot that was like, when you're talking about pot that like influenced the 60s and like the stuff that had people like they were smoking pot, but they were still out of the house. Like the kind of pot that's going on now is like very different. It's like pin you to the
Yeah.
couch and like you think you're on a different planet. I mean, it really is way, I mean, objectively, this isn't just some boomer. I'm not a boomer, but that kind of thing. I'm not just some old guy saying pot is way,
Different.
way stronger than it used to be. And so like when I smoke pot, it definitely like, especially growing up in a conservative, like Connecticut, like rich
Mm-hmm.
town full of people who just everyone was expected to be a stockbroker. And that was really where everybody was headed because we didn't know any better because it was before the
Yeah.
internet. And, like smoking pot definitely did make me laugh at stuff that I took seriously before, like the news.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about this a lot. Like the first time I smoked pot, you start to like look at the news and then you say, why is that news anchor talking like that? You know what I mean? And why are they wearing that outfit? And why do they sit up all straight? And what the fuck's the matter with them? And that's helpful a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know that in modern pot, like if you manage to get your hands on some, like if you're camping or something and you got some mild weed, like it is, I've had some beautiful experiences just, but I can't really risk smoking pot anymore because I'm sober, but I have had some THC drops like over the years that I've been sober, and I know that would make some people say, well, you're not sober, but my problem was alcohol and
Yeah.
always alcohol. And I haven't had a drink in 12 years. And so that's never going to change.
Yeah.
And the times I have tried to smoke pot, because I did remember having a good time on it like years and years ago, like when I was a teenager, and it just hasn't been the same. It's been very unpleasant because it's just
Yeah.
I'm not equipped to deal with that pot that strong. Kids who do it now, it's like, I'm sure they just, like 17, it doesn't matter. Your body goes, I can
Yeah.
do this, whatever.
Yeah.
But, you smoke some modern pot at age, 50 or whatever, you're going to be ending up, definitely thinking you can't breathe. I would say the main thing.
A couple years ago, I moved to Maine, so we're up in Maine now, and
Oh,
pot's,
no way. I
and
love
pot's legal,
Maine.
and pot's legal here. So like I've been into
Oh,
like
it
dispensaries,
is.
and it's there's so many like choices and so many different strains, and
Oh,
I'm like, this
God.
is deeply confusing. First off, as a person who's never smoked to begin with, but like as they're talking about like what each one does, like that scares me off more than anything else. I'm like, I think this is too extreme for me to ever
It's
start
all
here.
fucking
This is
bullshit too. Like they don't know what any of them do. That always end up being too strong compared to what they said it was. They're like, oh shit. Like that is like pot science is like the craziest.
yeah.
Like it's like people who taste whiskey and shit. Like it's like you're getting fucking drunk. Whiskey is a strong ass drug that makes you drunk like pretty much immediately. So the idea that you're sitting around tasting it is fine. But you're going to end up garden variety drunk. So the idea that pot is like there's a million different ways to be stoned. I mean, there's one dominant way to be stoned. And it makes you, do a couple things that are pretty predictable. But
It sounds like the most pothead job that's ever existed, which is a person that thinks that pot is so intricate that they have to tell you about every possible type of pot.
well, also if you're that like well versed in smoking pot, like you should probably like stop doing it because that means you've gone fucking crazy. Like if you know the shades of every single pot experience, then you either are unemployed or you're a rich kid. I mean, I would assume either one. But I think that like that's another add-on to that joke about the whoever people who say that weed has no side effects have mustard on their pants. The other thing is like, oh yeah, which one is it, indica or sativa, that makes you go to bed without brushing your teeth? Oh yeah, both of them. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like it's not. I don't really think that if you've never smoked pot before, that either indica or sativa is going to probably be helpful. You're probably just going to be like, holy shit, I feel crazy. I mean, especially if you're an older person trying for the first time. But I do think weed has more to offer, certainly, than alcohol. Alcohol has nothing to offer except for possibly if you're like a musician or something and you're scared to go on stage, like the first couple times you go, it might be helpful to have a couple beers beforehand. But that's the only thing the only thing alcohol would ever do for you is make like, or like you maybe like somebody and you have a couple drinks and that makes you less like more able to say I like you or something like that. But that's like, you know, but also if that's just depends if genetically you can have some drinks and just put them down. I mean, I didn't, once I had alcohol, it was not mild for me. I mean, I was just like, this is my place. This is my happy place. It had way too much to offer for me. Like, I mean, as an alcoholic, and if you look through my family tree, it's just like, I mean, it's all Irish and it's all just, I have alcoholism and suicide all over the place, you know? And, so I don't recommend that I don't think you missed anything. I mean, I could characterize a lot of what I did drinking as fun, but I mean, I have a hard time saying that only because I barely remember most of it. Like, not because I was blacked out, but it all blurs together because it's all the same kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like distinctive. It's not like hang gliding or something. It's like, I went to a bar and I had fun. I went to a bar and I had fun. I went to a bar and I had fun. And you look back on it, it's just like you see a mix of pool tables and jukeboxes and cigarettes and stuff, but you can't pick out what happened. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I feel like I've still lived a pretty interesting life, and I've said yes to a lot of strange things, but I remember all of them.
Definitely. I mean,
I saved so much money. I saved so much money.
Oh my God. I don't even want to think about, I mean, if I had all the money, I mean, I had to have spent, you know, I mean, realistically, I had to have spent, I'm not sure how I got it, but I figure I must have spent like $350,000 at least on that shit. Maybe 500,000, but I mean, I don't know how I got it, but you know, you managed to get it if you need to.
Yeah. Of course. But when you did stop drinking, when you did get sober, this kind of goes back to something you were saying earlier about like going on stage, of having that, like, you know, a shot to loosen you up or a beer before you go on. And I know especially musicians typically have like a pre-show ritual of like, they're going to do their thing. Well, you know, some that don't eat. I know guys who like right before I go on stage, I take a shit, like no matter what. That's just what I always do. So how did it change your like ritual going on stage, or how did it change the way you approach going on stage when you got sober? If you had always been doing that while you were drinking, did it change any of that at all for you?
It changed everything. I mean, but it was, it changed everything in the sense that it changed my way of being on stage without me having to do anything. It made me more present. I mean, by the time I returned to performing after getting sober, which took a little while and definitely was like a little bit nerve-wracking, but I also have always been a performer. Even since I was a little kid, I've always been that way. So I don't think it was ever a question that I was going to do it again. It was just like, how's this going to go? But especially for the stand-up, I mean, it seems so obvious now, but having my wits about me on stage is like, I mean, drinking is the worst thing for stand-up you really could ever do in a way. I mean, especially if you're going to wing it. I mean, if you're going to wing your stand-up performance, I mean, it was really like a wonderful thing because I realized, oh God, like all this dirtiness that I was doing forever was sort of, which I knew was like a compensation. Like, well, if I'm dirty enough, no one will know that I bombed. You know what I mean? Like I'll just offend people and they'll be like, oh, God, I don't even know what that was. Did he do well? I don't know. He just made me really fucking sick. He said all these horrible things. You know, I was like, yeah, that's a good set. You know, plus I was miserable. So my idea of stand up was just picking people in the audience that looked happy and just saying stuff to them until they were sad.
Oh my gosh.
Which is not, you know, that turns out that's one. I mean, that is a form of something. I don't know what it is.
It's called a roast. People are typically aware that's going to happen to them.
That was 100%. Like, I was just like, so I was like immature. I would say that I would describe my art as immature, if somewhat accomplished before I drank. Especially the music, I think, was still very good, but it was like subject matter was sort of adolescent, you know, because I'm a big AC/DC fan and stuff. So like that stuff sounds like sexist now when I play it, but it's really just those are the rock lyrics I was used to. They're all supposed to be about like nighttime and women and, you know, like motorcycles or whatever I grew up listening to. And then all stuff sounds all crazy and toxic masculinity stuff now. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, all those songs are like, sound all of a sudden like really dumb, even though I was aware they were dumb, but it's like hard to, So like the songs that I did with the Alcohol Stunt Band, some of them I absolutely love. And I also wrote ballads back then too. And I would stick them on the same records. And all those records are out of print now. I mean, they're just not around. I kind of intentionally, because the band like had a kind of, well, it just, we had some trouble, just like people like some rocky stuff with the band. And I do think that I didn't understand that. I thought people understood that I was a nice guy no matter what I did. I thought they would understand it was all like punk rock or something, but I found out like after I got sober that a lot of people really thought I was a jerk, and that made me sad. And not after I got sober, like toward the end of being drunk, I was starting to get the idea that people didn't understand that this was an act. And then I started to look at it like, well, if you do this all the time, how are people supposed to know?
Yeah. When does the act end? And
and the
where
people
is
who knew
it
me
just
well,
you?
like my mom or my brother or something, knew it was an act, but that's because they saw me all the time. But like, your average person, I just remember being like, I started dating this woman, and she told me some friend of hers didn't like me, and I was like, what do you mean she doesn't like me? And she's like, well, she went to some show of yours and you were breaking a bunch of stuff and something hit her in the head, and that kind of thing, and it's like, oh, and I was like, but my belligerent response to her, and I got sober during this relationship, was like, well, she just needs to understand art, or whatever, and it's like, or understand punk rock. And she was like, no, she doesn't, and I was like, oh yeah, she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to do that at all. I have to take responsibility for my actions and not think that I can control people's minds. And that is what my problem was. I thought you start to get very, very grandiose when you drink all the time. And it comes from playing God. It comes from just like being wrapped up in yourself in this weird way. Like you think you're a mad scientist playing with your mood. And then that sort of just bleeds into thinking you're a mad scientist, period. And it can become like, anyway, so yeah, getting sober, like playing on stage was like, especially the music was really fun because it was the first time I was ever able to really enjoy, like, boy, oh boy, like I get to play a big distorted guitar through regular sized guitar, but I get to play a distorted guitar through a big stack of amps and have people watch and get to blast and play crazy solos and yell and scream. And this is fun as hell. And I get to be here for it for once. And I'm not doing an act. I'm here, I'm like, I'm not, oh, look, you're doing this. No, it's like, I am doing this. There's no looking at myself from the outside. And that's with drinking. There's a lot of that because I was aware, like, oh, this isn't really me. I'm not really this drunken guy. I'm this nice guy from Connecticut doing my best punk rock. But that's like, it takes you out of it. And so now you're present. And also, sadly, so many times, because I would like ask the audience for drinks when I was on stage. So that's another thing. It seems like a fantasy if you're an alcoholic. Like, oh, look, people just gave me 8 shots. That's like free. That's like $80 worth of shots. Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm fucking making money at this. You know what I mean? Like, it's all crazy thinking. And so like you drink 8 shots. And then by the end of the show, even if it was a good show, and our shows were good because I love when the band gets drunk. I like watching bands that are drunk. I mean, I thought the whole thing, I was aware of like what fun it was to have the band get drunk with you as an audience. It's kind of fun because there's no separation then. But the real thing was I would get done with the show and I'd be drunk and I wouldn't remember I would remember nothing. I mean, I wouldn't know. People would say nice things to me. I wouldn't remember what they were. And then the rest of the night would just cartwheel into just oblivion. And it's really fun to do something like Daily Zeitgeist, which we were talking about before. I don't know if we got it on the recording, but like Daily Zeitgeist, for example, like really art's just about creating a community. Daily Zeitgeist created the Zeit Gang. I've benefited greatly from that community. And like, I was aware when I was a kid, I was like, well, I want to have shows because they're going to be like parties. Like I'm going to throw a party like every month that all my friends are going to come and we're just going to have a good time. And that creating community is, especially in an environment like in a capitalist system that's sort of collapsing, there's not much community. We're just in our cars all the time and like now working from home. And it's just like, I got back to that idea, like understanding like, oh yeah, this isn't about me and it isn't about me being famous and it isn't about any of that kind of stuff. It started out just me being like, I want to throw a party.
Yeah.
I want to throw a party and I don't have to be fucking drunk to do it. And what kind of party is it if I never remember it? That kind of stuff. And Jonathan Richman has been my idol for a long, long, long time. And I don't know if you're familiar with Jonathan Richman at all. Jonathan Richman.
No.
I'm saying Richmond just to distinguish between Richmond. It's Richmond. He was in a band called Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. And they played sort of like post-punk type stuff, or punk, really, actually sort of pre-punk. What am I saying? Pre-punk. Like they were kind of like a lot of people give them credit for inventing punk rock in a way by mistake, just by playing this stripped down, interesting, dark stuff. But then Jonathan decided he didn't like that sort of arty way of playing. He went to Bermuda and he saw a calypso band that was doing like novelty songs. And he said it changed his life because he realized this guy's connecting with the audience. He's not up there acting snotty like a rock kid. He's not being a rock star. And Jonathan changed, and he has a song about it called Monologue About Bermuda, which talks about his change from post or pre-punk, like dark, pretentious music, which is beautiful. I love the stuff, Modern Lovers, but he made a decision. He saw a calypso band doing novelty songs on vacation, and he said, I'm dropping this whole art punk thing, and I'm just going to become and then he went too far in that direction and started doing songs like I'm a Little Dinosaur, which I can't stand. But then he kind of found his happy place, which is in between sentimental and silly. And anyway, his artistic journey is one that I just, and his presentation on stage, not drunk. I don't even know if he ever drank. I don't know if he ever did drugs. He's an odd guy. And he just has been playing his whole life, and his shows are half talking, which is all like and that's like my shows are. And Loudon Wainwright's another person that another idol of mine who also talks a whole lot. And it sort of walks that line between funny and point and sentimental. Well, and sometimes they both fail. I mean, there's I'm a Little Dinosaur, and then there's Loudon Wainwright has some songs that I don't want to hear they're too wacky. But Jonathan Richman was not pretentious, and he let go of it on purpose through evolution. And that's what I think I hope to have accomplished. And that's why my voice, when I go on the Daily Zeitgeist, I think maybe cut through, because I am older, and because I've kind of I don't know. I'm not trying as hard as I used to. I'm not trying as hard to be what, if I'd known ahead of time what the Daily Zeitgeist was, and I was still drinking, I probably would have been way heightened and thought I got to be on in some way that's appropriate for this show or any of that kind of stuff. But it was great because I did stand up in LA. I moved to LA in 2014. When I got sober, I finally moved because I couldn't move because I was afraid I was going to socialize myself into the grave if I moved to a new town. So when I moved to LA, I did stand up a bunch, but I had to start all over. I was doing open mics out there and stuff. And I was a big deal in Nashville, and I had to go over there. And I was 45 too. So everybody's like, who the fuck is this guy? It was not very uncomfortable. But Anna Hosnier, who ended up being the booker for Daily Zeitgeist, she was booking stand up for a little while. So she saw me and thought I was great. Really did. She was like, you are great. Yeah. And she was like, I'm going to book you in a bunch of stuff. And then she quit booking. And I was like, oh God, it sucks. But then she started booking podcasts. And so years later, 3 years later, she just asked me if I wanted to be on Daily Zeitgeist. And I didn't know what it was. And so I didn't respond right away. And then my friend said, I listened to the show Daily Zeitgeist, and he's like, you would do really well on there. You should go on there. And I was like, oh my God, my friend Anna books that show. She just asked me to do it. And I was like, oh my God, Anna, you still want me to do that show? So I knew it was something of a big deal, but I didn't know it had a big, big audience. Yeah. So when I went on there and talked about metal detecting, it was, I didn't realize that it was going to change my life a little bit, because I got thousands of social media follows out of that show. And the good thing is those are people like you who are not too cool for school. They'll buy, you know what I mean? You're sitting there with 2 products of mine behind you. That's huge, because when you when you're in a town like Nashville and you're just playing for other people who are all also musicians, I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
I'm buying other people's albums all the time. Like I'm just thinking about my own, what I'm going to do for my next album or whatever. I mean, it's not that I don't support my friends, but I also don't have any money. So what you want to do
Yeah.
is you want to reach people who have like a steady job, who like what you do and can afford to buy your record, because
Yeah.
and that what afforded Daily Zeitgeist afforded that to me, like people who were really like, more stable than me. And they were just able to say, yeah, I like you and I want to buy your shit. I mean, that's like, or I want to support your Patreon.
Yeah.
Like that's big. And that's
Yeah.
not easy to tap into if you're just a cool guy, because you're just going to be playing for rich kids and stuff. And they don't care
Yeah.
about your record. They
No, of
might
course
like to
not.
be there and look around the room and say, oh, we're all cool together, but they're not going to buy your record. They're going to go
Yeah.
take off their leather pants and go golfing or play tennis or whatever the fuck they do.
No, but I do think that you cut through in a way, because obviously there's a lot of guests on that show. 5 guests a week.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
constantly hearing new people that I've never heard of before. And then every now and then someone will come on and you'll be like, oh, I have to see what else this person has done. Because like you said, you came on talking about metal detecting and mudlarking and Oak Island and like all this other stuff. And I'm like, is this guy insane? And then I listened to your album. I'm like, no, there's like so much sincerity in what he actually does. Like, I love it because I listen to this album all
I
the
love
time.
that record too.
I
Thanks.
think it's phenomenal.
Oh, I'm so glad. I love it too. I love it too. And you're going to love the new one. The new one's a little more bells and whistles a little bit, but I like it even better. I mean, that record's always, I think, going to have a place though, because it has this sort of very distinctive sound and it's very stripped down, and it's, I'm not like used to sort of recording. I don't know. There's something beautiful about it that I don't think will be replaced, but the new record is really beautiful and I'm excited and I'm, about it. But yeah, I think that, yeah, I don't know. I always wanted to be a real one. All the artists that I like are real ones, and you can pick them out. Who the ones are that are, and I just wanted that. I didn't know how it was going to look. I just knew I wanted to be part of it,
Yeah.
And I think that's like a lot of good art comes from people who don't, because you don't know what you're doing. That's the part that makes it your own. It's like, if I knew what I was doing, then it would have maybe come out sounding just like something else, but instead I'm trying to make something that, that I'm not really sure of how to do, you know what I mean? So it's like, how do I make a Cat Stevens record or how do I make like a great, record like a Joni Mitchell record, except I don't really know how to play guitar very well. Oh, and then I hear Kurt Cobain and I say, well, even though he knew how to play guitar really well, but he just sort of had a great way of concealing it. But he basically played power chords. And so I was like, oh shit, maybe I can make like power chord Cat Stevens. You know what I mean? Or power chord James Taylor, or like, because I love that sort of confessional, or power chord Carly Simon. I'm such a huge Carly Simon fan. And she grew up in a musical family. She knew how to play the piano. She knew how to play. I didn't really have that in where I grew up. Like, even I kind of grew up near where she grew up, but I grew up in a very corporate sort of, I just was not. And also I wasn't musical. I loved music, but I had to like sort of work at it didn't come naturally to me. And so I think that's kind of the fun of like a record like Hello, It's Me, is it's got a homemade kind of quality to it that almost sounds like, and my voice is so innocent sounding just because it has this sort of plaintive, and I'll tell you something funny. And if I think you guys will, whoever's listening will think this is so funny. I mean, this is the funniest thing in the world. I don't talk about it much either, because it's very uncomfortable territory. So you get ready. Not because it's like inappropriate, but like there's this like hipster blog, like this record blog that's like, likes all these like fancy California folk people, that do all their videos in the desert and run around and like, have great hair. And
this is audio, so you mean people like you with great hair?
Yeah, sure. Yes, totally. Yes. Well, because if I didn't have great hair, I mean, you can't make art without great hair.
No.
That sort of like kind of modern hippie folk kind of self-help music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You know what I mean? It's sort of like
Yeah.
fancy folk, fancy mainstream. Like I'm trying to think of somebody, I don't know, but my music has something in common with that, but it's like sounds like wonky because it's not,
Yeah.
it's intentionally and also on purpose because my voice has that quality, like sounds homemade in a way, in a
Mm-hmm.
weird way. So this blog put my album on like their top 100 of 2018 or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
like said in the review, like this music is so honest that you'll probably think it's outsider art, but this isn't outsider art, which to me was like the craziest thing I've ever fucking heard in my life. But I get it because everything is so mannered now
Yeah.
that this sounded so bracingly bare to this guy
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't know how to take it. He didn't
Yeah.
understand that. I was like, because I was like, outsider art, first of all, I mean, you know what outsider art is. I mean, that is like, you don't want to tell anybody you're making outsider art if you're single. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I mean, it's a compliment-ish. I mean, it's actually a huge compliment. It means you're tapping into something so primal that it almost is like this person must have some sort of disorder to be dishonest. But it's not that. I mean, that's why I was like, have you ever heard like Carly Simon songs? Like, I mean, this is a new phenomenon where everybody just sings this like sort of gobbledygook over there. You know, they read their diary over their lyrics. Or, I mean, their lyrics are diary entries that you can't understand. I mean, it used to be you told people your problems explicitly in songs. Yeah. I mean, singer-songwriter stuff was all about being confessional. And it was almost like this guy who's probably a young guy who writes this blog, never heard that shit. So he's probably like, this guy must have something wrong with him to be this honest. And I just thought that was the most incredible complimentary review, but also just like kind of explained to me why art now is like, you know, fancy in this sort of silly, self-conscious way, because you don't want to be perceived as, you want to be perceived as, I am an artist. I'm not some hack. Yeah. Like a hack would be, you know, just over self-consciously fancy. Let me put it that way. I don't want to, the new record I made is definitely a lot fancier than that one, but also retains, I mean, it's beautiful and it retains the honesty and everything, but it's not, I understand, but it was just the funniest review I've ever heard in my life.
That's great.
I mean, you know,
but I do get it, because that Hello It's Me feels like an album, not in its production, because the production's good, but in its presentation feels like it could have been like a tape recorder that you found in your granddad's attic. Like granddad recorded these songs, like, because it is so honest and so raw and so stripped back that it feels like an artifact you would find.
Well, that's a gift of, in a weird way, the gift of my voice. My voice is has a weird honesty to it. I mean, I am honest as well, and that even heightens it. So I'm not unaware of what my voice does. I'm not I'm not unaware of how intimate my voice sounds in a weird way. And so like, I know to be honest on top of that, like painfully honest, is it's like kind of like, it's not a trick, but it's like, wow, like this is like, this is no artifice, you know, and even though there is a little artifice to it, I'm aware I'm making a record, you know, but I'm
still
aware,
art. Yeah.
But I'm aware of that strength of what if I was like, just really bare, this voice is just like, my voice is just sort of has this vulnerable sort of quality to it. And it also is like my real voice, which is, has all the sadness of my growing up in it and all these sort of like, so it's all there, but it's not I didn't do it intentionally, but I understand where that guy got it. But I just think it's so funny because like, you don't catch like a lot of people saying like, oh, you should meet my boyfriend. He's an outsider artist. Like that's not, that's just insane. I mean, that's just like that's like something you don't like, don't tell anybody that, you know, don't, but it's just a crazy thing.
But the album is also representative of who you are in the way you write The Advice King as well. Like your approach to answering questions. And I went back and I reread the book before this.
Oh, wow.
I prepare for these things. All right.
Unbelievable. And I know you put up a sculpture. He's got he's put these things in the frame. I'm the kind of person who wouldn't even notice that either. Like the whole interview, I just like there's certain things I don't notice.
it helps me get in the right headspace. But there is a section of the book, and it is page 99 if anyone wants to, look it up. But somebody writes in and asks about like, hey, how do I get rid of my depression? And your answer was, you said at first, like you wanted to write a joke, like go see an IMAX movie every day or something like that. Like who could be depressed while watching IMAX? And then you go into a story about a friend who had recently taken his own life. And then like your process of getting sober, of like starting drinking very young, and then, treating depression with depressants, and then that kind of spiraling, and then getting sober and realizing, it's not that everybody dies in the end, but like we should be thankful that we're alive. And like, even though that is a very stark question somebody gave and a very serious answer, like that, even in the funny stuff in the book, like there's still that sincerity throughout. So I think it rings true of all your art or of all your creating, because it feels so true of who you are, to just be honest and just be sincere in the way you approach things. And I think that's what resonates with people like me who hear you on a podcast talking about mudlarking. Like, but there's so much cynicism in the world, and it's so easy to be cynical because cynicism requires nothing of you. Like cynicism is surrender, and sincerity takes work, and it takes really focusing on like who you are and how you can make things better. So like that's what I think about when I think about you. It is, it's all the YouTube videos, and it's Cold Brew Got Me Like, but like there's so much sincerity and so much heart and so much honesty that has me wanting to know, hey, what's the next album going to be about? Or like, what's the next Advice King column going to be like? Because I'm drawn to that type of art. I really respect it quite a lot.
Me too, and that's what I wanted to be. I mean, that's the stuff I responded to in terms of authors, reading authors, like Kurt Vonnegut was somebody who immediately stuck out to me because I felt like I was listening to him talk directly to me, because he wrote in this conversational, freewheeling.
I mean, I've got So It Goes tattooed right on my wrist.
Okay, so. There you go. Okay, that's sort of like, and Bukowski affected me, of course, because he's so plain spoken, plain. I responded to plain, honest, that's what I liked. And also I grew up in a lot of like, pain. And I also had a lot of support. I had a weird upbringing in the sense that I had a lot of support and encouragement from my mom, especially, but I also had a real lot of pain in my childhood. So I had a combination of like being forced to be, I didn't know how else to be, because there was so much bad stuff happening for me. And it just sort of beat all the artifice out of me because it was too stark. It was so stark that I couldn't ignore it. So it was like, I had to like, I was forced to develop like empathy and being used to just seeing like sort of degradation and being like able to accept it and but also that made me sad and I think that, so I'm a combination of like I'm sad, but I'm trying to cheer myself up and trying to cheer everybody else up at the same time, and that's sort of like shot through, but it's all like stuff that just sort of happens, it's like I don't think about that on a daily basis, but I know that support from my mom just being like, you're really talented, and then combined with, not feeling that when I was out in the world, I felt out of place in a very bad way. I think my voice was what was all I thought I had. And I just remember, I guess I got a little lost just now, but I think this is what happened is like anything went in my household because there was so much dysfunction. So there was just like all this talk about like bad, horrible things all the time. So I was used to being able to talk about anything, like, you know what I mean? Like when your dad's talking about killing himself all the time, you just sort of are like, well, I guess I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to, you know what I mean? Like you seriously do. It became like, oh, my superpower is I'm not afraid of any topic. That was what I felt like. Cause I was like, what else is this house giving me? What is my dad's pain and suffering giving me? Well, it's giving me a lot of sadness, but it's also making me like, when I go to school and I talk about something that from my house, they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, I get it. Like I'm the only one who knows about all this horrible stuff. So I can tell everybody about it. And then that makes me different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're the kid that knows Santa isn't real.
Yes, like kind of like that. Even though my mom did protect, I actually thought Santa was real till I was like 17, but not really. But you know what I mean. But it was like an interesting place to grow up. My house, and I'm not trying to put my dad down or anything, but he was out of control when we were kids, and he said stuff that was just way beyond what you're supposed to say to kids. And so that became my voice was like. I was like, well, I don't know what I got out of this, except every time I tell these stories to my classmates, they're just kind of like intrigued. They lean in, like, what happened? And then I, started embellishing them. And that's where the creative stuff comes from. Because then I'm like, oh, yeah, it was worse than that, even. You're not going to believe this. Then he fell out the window, and they're like, what? And then I'm like, oh, it's like there's a lot of strength to, like knowing about pain and weird stuff.
Yeah, because that's the stuff people don't want to confront. People spend their lives learning how to confront the pain and the trauma that they have. So when you do that at a young age, it frees you up to, I don't want to say like play in that realm, but kind of play in that realm because you're not afraid of it in the same way that other people are. Like, this is a reality of life, but it's also dangerous.
Yeah, and you also can't forget it. So it's like the stuff your classmates want to do who are not going through this are just like seem dumb to you. So you're like, kind of also get this confidence because you're like, oh, I'm smarter than everybody else. But really, you might not be. You might just be more traumatized than everybody else. Yeah. But it gave me confidence in a way because I was like, oh, this all seems dumb to me. Like all this stuff we're supposed to be doing, like, oh, we're supposed to go run around and do this, and I'm supposed to play soccer. Why do I want to play soccer? I mean, everybody wants to kill themselves that I know. You know what I mean? It really does. Like it screws shit up for you.
Yeah.
And that's why I started drinking because I was like, I don't know what kind of mentality I have. Why do I think everything's stupid that my friends are interested in? And that separates me from them and makes me lonely. And it also makes me arrogant. And how do those things coincide? Like the fact that I feel like a loser and lonely and also arrogant. And it turns out that I did feel like art was a place I could put all that stuff because music was my savior. I forget that the key component of all this is actually my dad and mom both listened to music incessantly and loved good music. And so pop music, whether it was the Beatles or country music or John Denver or, I was exposed to music. They played records all day Saturday, every Saturday and Sunday, the records on the record player, Neil Diamond and stuff. And I just I just fell in love with music because it was also a place for me to hide when they were arguing. Yeah. I would go upstairs and listen to music and then Prince. If you grow up in the suburbs, if you're growing up in the suburbs in Connecticut in 1983, and you're supposed to be a stockbroker, and then Prince puts out Purple Rain, I mean, you're not going to be a stockbroker anymore, at least for me. I mean, I was just like, what is that guy doing? First of all, these songs fucking rule. Second of all, that guy is like, has fake cum squirting out of the end of his guitar all over the audience. And he's like, I was like, what is, it's like when I first saw wrestling, like I saw these men who were hitting each other with chairs. And I was like, how do I get that job? How do I get that job? Like, you know what I mean? How do I mean, that was immediately because I was like, this world is so colorless.
Yeah.
In Connecticut. And there's no internet and there was no other town that I could go to. So I was like, this is it. I was like, the whole world is just khakis and tucked in Oxfords and freaking stockbrokering. And I'm not interested in any of that. So I guess I'm just fucked. Yeah. So I'm just going to stand around talking about suicide while everybody else plays soccer. And then and then out of nowhere, I saw wrestling. And that was like, I changed the channel. No one had ever told me about wrestling. So when I changed the channel and saw wrestling for the first time, I was just like, oh my God. Like, not only is there a job that isn't a stockbroker, but it's like the greatest job I've ever seen in my life. All you have to do is peroxide your hair and like yell into a microphone. You can make a living. I mean, unbelievable. Because back then you didn't have to be in shape or anything.
Oh yeah, no.
You just had to be insane. That was the only qualification. And I was like, I'm insane. I mean, it really was. Like, I mean, I've talked about it a lot because wrestling did blow my mind and made me. That was really even before Prince. That was the first thing that made it like, I'm not gonna, something's wrong. And my whole family knew, like my grandfather was like, you've gone like simple. Like he's like, you've gone simple. You've become simple. Like he would see me watching wrestling and he'd be like, what the hell has happened to you? And I'd be like, I don't know, but it happened. You know what I mean? There's no turning back. I like wrestling a lot more than I like stockbrokering, and there's no fucking way back. My grandfather was like, "You're gonna be a lawyer," and I'm like, "Not anymore." Unless I'm a lawyer that hits people with chairs and wears a fucking feather boa, is drunk all the time.
That's kind of a good. That's a good character, though. That would be pretty solid.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that was what I've said this many, many times. So in many podcasts, or just anytime I talk about my upbringing, I always mention that people would say to me when I was younger in Connecticut, you're really funny. You should be a lawyer. Because that's how limited the palette was. They're like, oh, that's a talking job, a lawyer. Deranged. You know, I mean, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I didn't know about any other job. So if you asked me in like 1986 what was up, like I'd be like, I guess I'm going to be a lawyer. But then I went to college and everybody's like, you're going to be a lawyer? If you're alive.
Well, Chris, I'm really glad you didn't go to law school, and I'm glad you're not a lawyer.
Thanks.
And I'm glad we have your art. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I'm so glad we connected. Very, very fun experience being on here.
So the original idea for the show, because I work in marketing, I worked for a bunch of like tech startups and all that bullshit. And like grind set culture is the thing. Like if you're not working 80 hours a week and you don't see your kids and you're not making $500,000 a year, you're a failure, is kind of the mentality. And like I've watched so many people completely burn themselves out and like work towards something and then lose it all. And then a couple years ago, I was at a point, I've always had depression. It's just been part of my life for as long as I can remember. Even being like 6 years old, I remember being depressed.
Yeah, me too.
And so a couple years ago, I got to a point where I planned to take my life. Like I wrote my notes and I left the house.
Wow.
And my wife called me. It's the only reason I'm still alive.
Oh my God.
And so then it started like this journey of like, how do I find the balance of, yeah, I have a wife, I have kids, I need to provide, but also I'm pushing myself to this limit that I know is unsustainable and I know will kill me because my brain is telling me that like I cannot go any further.
Wow.
And so it's been like this couple year journey of me like stripping things back, of changing jobs, of doing everything I can to kind of rebalance my life. We went from
I'm so glad.
We lived in Georgia. We cut all ties with everybody in our families, and we moved to Maine. We didn't tell anybody. We just picked up and left. And so it's just been like kind of restarting and finding myself and finding balance. No, thank you.
I'm so sad you went through that. No, that's insane. I you know, that's I've never been there. I've never been there, you know, and I don't, you know, that's just huge that you're back from that.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, and people don't talk about it enough. And I think there's such a stigma around it, especially among men, of like, no, you just don't talk about your feelings. And so for me, I'm like, well, no, because I went through it and because I know other people are also, I do feel a moral responsibility to talk about these things. Because like if I can change the stigma in any way, and if literally a single person can change their viewpoint, not only if they're feeling it, but if someone around them might be and they don't know the signs.
I relate to that.
You can change someone's life. Like literally my wife called me.
That's incredible. So where were you? Where were you? Where were you headed when your wife called you? Were you in like a motel room or something?
No, I was just going to go to a park and do it.
Wow. So and she called you up and she was like, where are you going? And you were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like she like broke the spell kind of thing, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to explain. Like people talk about like there's like this euphoric sense. Like I remember the exact moment when I decided I was going to do it. And like I felt so much better when I decided, oh, I'm going to do it. Because I was like, oh, it's all going to be gone. I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Sure.
And so like there was just like this euphoric state I was in for like an 18-hour period between when I decided and when I left to go do it.
Right.
Which is dangerous because now like I like that euphoric state. That felt good to not feel that pressure. Yeah. And I've heard other people who have either are survivors or who planned their suicide like talk about that state of like there's times where like there's this switch in their brain of something will happen and they'll just be like, oh, I could just kill myself. Because like you've already gone so far that it seems easier now. So like I really have to keep myself in check. And it's a lot of conversations my wife and I have to have of like if I'm starting to disconnect due to work stress, or like if I just leave the house without saying where I'm going, like just call and check in just so she can make sure I'm good. Cause now this is
Sure.
trauma she has to deal with.
Oh,
Cause
sure.
so
Oh
like it,
man, my dad was always threatening to commit suicide, but the thing
mhm,
with him is it was like a cry for help. I don't he may have half-heartedly attempted to cut his
mhm,
wrist once. I think he did, but nothing as real as what you're talking about. He
yeah,
he was in pain, but he never got to that point. But
yeah,
it was like put a lot of pressure on all of us because he was
mhm,
constantly talking about it. There was never any resolution. He never said like, oh, like I'm sorry or anything. Like maybe this is probably stressing you out. You know what I mean? It's like that's a discussion that yeah,
yeah,
that's got to be hard for your wife. But
mhm,
I mean, I'm so glad that I mean that's incredible. I mean that's incredible. That you got through that. I mean that's just wonderful that you because I mean I don't know you know I just think well I don't know I don't even know what to say.
all
I
that to
just know it's
say,
good. Yeah, I know it's just know it's good.
all that to say, I wanted to have a show where I could just have conversations with people about like what they're into, how they find balance in their life, how they
I
keep
go to the
like,
gym. I still go to the
see,
gym,
me too.
exercise.
Me too.
Yeah.
I did think that would solve my depression for a while, and I was working out for 4 hours a day,
Oh
like
wow.
at the peak of my depression.
Sure.
And like I tell people, like people joke like if you look good, you feel good. And I was like, no, the best shape I've ever been in my life was like when I was driving to go kill myself. So I don't think
Wow.
that's really
Wow.
that's not it. But like having people on who like I had Jack O'Brien on, and I was like, dude, how do you talk about the news for like 20 hours a week? Like,
Hmm.
how do you keep that like in check? Like, where do
I
you
gotta listen to that because I'm
find
interested in that.
happiness?
Yeah.
Um, and he and I had a conversation about like how we both struggle to find happiness within us. Like I don't feel happiness on my own. Like I find happiness in my kids. Like that is where I find majority of my happiness. I just struggle to find it internally.
Hmm.
And he was saying the same thing. He's like, yeah, like spending time with my kids, seeing my kids be happy, then helps me feel happy and helps me disconnect from all that bullshit. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just conversations like that. And funny you mentioned Prince. I had a guy on, Jordan Dickerson. His dad used to be Prince's guitarist.
Oh wow.
And then like he grew up to be a musician because like how could you not? If you grew up around
Yeah.
Prince, how could you not be a musician? How could your life be anything but that?
Totally. I mean, that's like you know, Prince was I mean, wrestling is so silly, but back then it was like you didn't have to be a muscle man. You really just had to
Mhm.
have a decent personality to talk on the mic,
Yeah.
and you could be out of shape, and you could be all you had to do was really just be that. You could be out of shape, have peroxide blonde hair, and just be like a scintillating person, and that was the job, really.
Yeah.
And you had to be able to like flip around a little bit, but the flipping was much milder back then.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like this whatever it is now, like gymnastics. But you know, that sort of thing. Like I was like, oh well, this is where you get to be um yourself all the time, or you get to be
Yeah.
wild all the time. You don't have to like there's no, you know, I'm sure there's certain things they had to conform to in terms of like dealing with the like the business end of wrestling. But you know, Prince, I felt like Prince, like I was like, oh, he created an atmosphere where he could be himself. That's what he did. He
Yeah.
created a universe where he could be himself. And that was just so appealing to me. It was like, oh, yeah, you can create your own reality to some extent. And that includes
Hmm.
something like moving to Maine
Yeah.
and not talking to your family if your family is fucking you up,
Yeah.
and that is like within your, and that's me in recovery, like finding out I don't want to cut my family off because they've been actually, you know, for the most part there's a lot we have trouble with, but I don't want to. I
Yeah.
you know, I just remember I've looked into ACA, and I've been to a lot of ACA meetings, which is adult children of alcoholics.
Hmm.
But my parents weren't alcoholics, but it doesn't matter because their parents were. So the
Yeah.
style of parenting, it's the same thing. It's just to shut up and and
Yep.
and and
Same
and
cycle.
stuff your feelings kind of thing. So you know, ACA, I talked to a guy who just said that, you know, he told his dad, and he was this unlikely guy. We were on a Zoom meeting, ACA. And this guy was like shopping in the supermarket while he was on the phone. And so I was like, this guy's going to be an idiot. You know, he's judging people. That's one thing about recovery that's fun is you go to an AA meeting and you see these people and you're like, asshole, that's an asshole. They'll turn out to be nice. You know, that person's dressed a certain way, so they must be a rich fuck, you know, that kind of thing. And like, they're all like nice in the end. So this guy's on the phone and he's got a Bluetooth in, you know, like in his ear, you know, like that kind of thing. Like he's old, you know, it's like, you know, he's old. He's like 10 years older than me. And he's in the supermarket. So I was like, this guy, why is he shopping why does he go on this ACA meeting while he's shopping? He can't shop any other time. So he's like looking around the lettuce section or whatever. And then he clicks on his thing and he's going to share. And I was like, this is going to be fucking stupid. And he says, he goes, I'm, you know, retired Teamster or something. So also an unlikely guy to be in recovery, you know, you'd figure. And he's like, man, you know, I told my dad 15 years ago or 12 years ago when he was sober or whatever, when he was trying to like straighten his life out, he said, listen, you talk to me like I'm 12 years old. And if you will stop doing that, you can be in my life. But if you won't, you can't.
Yeah.
And he said, I haven't talked to my dad in like 10 years. He said, but I gave him the choice, but he made me feel like a child, and I that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And it's true. And in his, you know, so I think that is like another thing about art that's nice is it's sort of you know, even if you don't want to cut your family off or you don't have to, you can create sort of a universe that has nothing to do with them and you can exist in that.
Yeah.
So where in Maine are you?
I'm right outside Bangor.
I don't even know where that is because I've been to Maine a lot, but it was only as a kid. Like we would go on these 3-day vacations there, you know, and stay in a motel or whatever, down by Kennebunkport and Ogunquit and that sort of stuff. But it's beautiful up there.
Oh yeah, no, I'm out in the woods, looking out my window right now. It's just trees.
Wow,
out in the middle of nowhere.
Did you ever run into Tucker Carlson?
Fuck no.
He's up there.
Yeah, I found that out after. Really bums me out.
You know, I went to college with him.
Oh yeah, I remember you.
Yeah, and he was in my class. Yeah, he was in my class. I knew him. He's just your average fuckhead. There's nothing even particular.
Yeah, he's another rich kid.
He's not very talented or anything. He's just a guy. He's just a guy who's like got a grudge because his
mom didn't love him, right?
Yeah, because he was raised by people who didn't love him.
Yeah,
yeah. So, he's just an angry, spoiled kid.
It shows. It shows.
Oh my God, he's done so much. I mean, he's done so much damage with it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's better to recover also just for that. You know what I mean? It's like if you can, you know, just like to try to get to a place where you're not taking it out on other people, you know, it's like.
Yeah. No, I was completely neglected as a kid. So like being hyper aware of that and making sure my kids don't ever feel that, like not repeating that cycle of feeling like I was in the way or that I was a burden.
Oh my God.
Or, you know, all the things that to this day play into my depression. Of like, I'm a burden to the people around me because that's how I felt as a kid.
I can never ever shake it no matter how much validation I get. And that's when you also start to realize that fame is no solution because no matter how much validation I get, it doesn't fix the primal feeling that I don't feel like I'm enough because I was sort of given that, or that I'm not, you know, that I'm bothering somebody. Like I'm somehow not normal and bothering people because my parents would always say like, you're abnormal and you're bothering people.
I mean, I feel that. I was the weird
fucking
one.
Funny. I mean, it's like, and then your parents are like, why? I don't understand why you're so fucking weird. Like my mom.
I was the one that didn't want to watch any sports. I wanted to sit in my room and watch horror movies and listen to death metal.
Right.
So like
which is the correct thing to do.
I wanted to read, watch movies, and listen to death metal,
which is what everybody finds out in the end once they get sober and stuff. That is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It just turns out that there's a lot of people who don't understand that who get mad. Kind of like people who don't understand Neil Hamburger jokes. They get very angry. So like, what the fuck are you doing in there? You're supposed to be bored out of your mind like we are.
I like to think of someone being on a first date, taking someone, and one person is aware of his style and one isn't, just to see how that date goes.
Oh my God, I've seen it. It's like they just have to leave eventually because the other person just has steam coming out of their head and the one person's laughing and they're just like, It's really crazy because I get it. Like, also Neil Hamburger's jokes are all about classic rock. Like, they're
Yeah.
all jokes. Have you ever seen him before?
Yeah, I've watched him. I've watched YouTube clips, and he's coming to New
You
Hampshire.
got to see him.
Are you doing any additional shows with him?
I don't know, hopefully, but I mean, not that I know of. I won't be in New Hampshire, but if you get a chance to see him live, it's the best. It's really fun, and it's always different. And just keep in mind that Greg is a lovely guy, and he's just really having fun up there. Yeah. And any of the meanness he does is just him just entertaining himself. It's just so fun, and he's gotten a lot less dirty and mean. If you look at those old clips, he's his character, like all of us, have evolved over the years into, he's really found his spot, and God, is fun to watch. And he says stuff that's so funny. I'll give you one more thing before I go, but he has this one. Well, his jokes, his jokes, first of all, are just great. A lot of them. And then a lot of them are about like a classic rock. Like,
yeah.
So if you don't know, I mean, and who the hell does know, except for his audience, who the Marshall Tucker Band is at this point? You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get, you're going to get it, but you won't get certain jokes. You'll be like, who is that? Like, I don't know who that is. And, he has tons and tons of Red Hot Chili Peppers jokes. If you didn't know who the Red Hot Chili Peppers jokes were, I mean, if you didn't know who the Red Hot Chili Peppers were, you'd probably walk out. I would probably walk out. I'd be like, well, I can't take this anymore. Who are these people? I've never heard of them. But his improvisations with the audience are really fun and I pray for him because a lot of times they don't happen, but because he'll just have a show that's smooth, but every now and then some drunk will say something and he'll just really get an opportunity to improvise, which is really fun. So we were in Savannah, Georgia, and this is just like a couple months ago, and he'd been telling this joke. Who wears tight purple velvet trousers, a jester's cap, a waxed mustache, and a monocle? And the audience is supposed to go, who? And they, usually do, who? Oh, Johnny Depp in Tim Burton's remake of Gandhi. And so like he gets through what? Who wears tight purple velvet trousers? And this drunk girl goes, Prince. And he finishes the joke, and then, I mean, this is my favorite moment of the whole tour, and there are a lot of favorite moments, but I was so glad when he stopped and then he just turned to the girl and he goes, now, when did Prince wear a monocle? and he goes, oh no, and then he goes, and okay, here's the joke how you would see it. Let's try the joke the way you see it. Who wears tight purple velvet trousers? Prince. We're not doing those kind of jokes here. That's trivia. That's Friday night. And she was embarrassed and dying, and she was drunk. She's like fell off her chair. I mean, it was just, he went on and on about what kind of joke would that be? What kind of joke would that be? Who wears tight purple velvet trousers? Prince. And he said he had another one, like he did another joke, like an example, like who's like who sings Margaritaville? Jimmy Buffett. That's the joke. So anyway, it was just so great. And his next one, I might as well, since I'm giving away a little bit of his material, like this is one of my favorite jokes. That's the follow-up to that joke, because he tends to do clusters of, why is Tim Burton's macaroni art so bad? Well, because it's glued to Johnny Depp. That's just one of my favorites. Just so fucking out there. And no one's given Tim Burton for shit enough for being obsessed with Johnny Depp. I mean, pretty much nobody. So
I love it. Hey, we're ending on a laugh, Chris. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I would talk forever because I'm kind of exhausted.
Thanks for listening. give it 5 stars because my dad is awesome and cool.